ready? Maybe not. We've got the red button of liveness. It has come on. All right, everybody, welcome to the Data Center News Show. I know this is the place to be. 1:30 p.m. Central on Thursdays. You just kind of need to, watch us on LinkedIn and YouTube. This is what happens. So, all right, Data Center News Show. I'm Amy Palvido, your host. This is a show of the U.S. PropTech Council. And I have some friends who are here, and we're going to chat all things data center, and I will let them introduce themselves first. And I got some more friends coming later. But go ahead, Roxanne.
Hi, I'm Roxanne Saponik, and I'm a partner at Joseph Chris Partners, and I am a mission critical recruiter specializing in data centers, and I'm happy to be on today. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, thanks for coming. And Joshua?
Hi, I'm Joshua Feinberg from DCSMI, the Data Center Sales and Marketing Institute, and host of the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast. I help go-to-market teams, marketers, sales professionals, product and channel partnership professionals elevate their game in data centers, critical facilities, and digital infrastructure.
Yes, very cool. And I was on Josh's podcast. So for anybody who's thinking about joining, it was completely harmless. I came out unscathed. He was pretty tough on some of the questions, but I survived. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's great. It was a great time. I love being on your show.
Yeah, likewise.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Okay. All right. So we're going to get to it. We got a couple of friends who hopefully find their way to hitting the join button here pretty soon. But I'm so glad Roxanne's on the show, because one of the stories that we were talking about, or topics we were talking about, is kind of like labor shortages in the industry, what we're seeing from not only a data center perspective, but even electrical infrastructure, because that you can't do a data center unless there's power. And so Roxanne is here because she's the expert in all things labor things around the data center industry. So I'm going to just let you go, girlfriend.
Yeah, well, I actually got back from a wild ride at DCW in DC. So I spoke there on recruitment and retention, and I have an interesting perspective of the labor. So my perspective is that they're necessarily, on the construction side in particular, there isn't, and we can parse out job titles, right? So electricians, anything electrical, we can say, sure, there's a labor shortage, but I can probably explain why. But in any other sector, construction related, I'm going to say that there really isn't a labor shortage, because the numbers don't tell me that. If I pull sample sizes and display that across a global perspective, we're facing an HR innovation challenge is what we're facing, and not necessarily a labor shortage. And so if we look at the time to hire, okay, if we look at labor as in time to market, right? It's 10 to 45 days. So 10 days is your trades, you're more hourly, and then you go into your skilled trades and then all of the other job titles. And then it's your executives is that 45 day. And so we're looking at an average hiring timeline of most companies is 90 days. So you have to think, where's your top talent going? And if it's not 10 to 45 days, they're going to the more agile firms that are actually focusing on innovation within their admin sphere also, and not being a cog in the machine, being stuck in interview processes and assessments and those things that are kind of antiquated in such an innovation heavy environment. And so that's kind of where my perspective is. And I'm sure you have questions for me, Amy, but I spoke on this very heavily, and I came with some data in particular from LinkedIn, right? It's kind of the best place to go to pull job titles and who's kind of posting jobs, and we can do comparisons. And I've done a complete case study on it and talked about it in detail. And I think companies need to do a better job in that hiring timeline, and we'll see a turnaround in that labor. And so we shouldn't put talent under the microscope as we should. I think we should reverse that and put the companies under the microscope.
Or use AI to kind of facilitate, still get your microscopy kind of things done, because you want to hire the right people. I mean, the turnover costs are expensive, right? But there's a lot of ways that AI can do a lot of that heavy lifting, to where you're still making sure that you're hiring the right people, and you're not losing out on good candidates because it's taking you 90 days. I can't imagine hiring a data center. It takes them 90 days to hire a data center technician.
Yeah.
Really? I mean,
Yeah.
you needed him 2 years ago.
Hmm.
Why are
Hmm.
you taking so damn long to hire somebody? But so there's that balance you always have to play. I mean, Roxanne and I could talk about this forever because I was in HR for like 12 years.
Yeah.
So like it's in times I remember I was at Applied Materials. It was 2000, and I was looking under rocks to find engineers. Like I could not find them anywhere.
Hmm.
And then I
Hmm.
would come up against the same thing 25 years later, or 25 years before, of we'd have to go through the process of the background clearing and all this other stuff and all. And I'm just like going, we need them on the floor. Like I don't,
Yeah.
what the hell are you doing? But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, something in that sphere definitely needs to be. I don't know all the solutions to that, to how they can make that process faster. I think that's a company by company basis.
Yeah.
But something definitely needs to be done, because the type of talent that contacts me and wants to make a move, they're really attracted to companies that are innovative in all spheres,
Right.
and that's the projects that they're working on, and also the admin teams that they're going to be working with.
Yeah.
And they want someone who can make quick, fast decisions, because that's what it's going to take on the project, is someone who can make those decisions. And if the first interaction isn't quick and fast, they're like, well, we have all these options of fun places to go and cool projects to work on, so we're going to go where we're readily accepted, and the timeline is quicker.
Yeah, I mean, it's now like in the multifamily industry right now, it is okay. All right. In the multifamily industry, you can qualify a tenant, do a credit and background check in less than 5 minutes. Like
Yeah.
you can basically figure out whether they are tenant worthy, and you want to basically loan them an apartment for a year at a contract that's maybe 15, 20 grand a year. And so that's basically the decision you're making on a person. Now, that's not maybe 100K salary, but but the limit of your exposure is like they can do that in 5 minutes. Why can't you figure out if this candidate is qualified in 5 minutes?
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, hold on. Hold on. I'm trying to get Adam Knobloch in here, and I don't see you. Okay. All right. Maybe we'll figure this out. Well, cool. So what else but the electrician shortage is real, right? Everybody acknowledges that the electrician shortage is real, right?
Yep.
What else? Are there any other sectors that are kind of like data center technicians as a whole? Is there certain kind of skills?
I think anything in the MEP realm. So you talk about mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. I mean, we can group it together. We can parse it out. I think we're facing shortages because in the past, I think people have taken creative approaches to finding those roles, and companies have taken creative approaches to what those roles look like. Meaning, if you have somebody who specializes in MEP, they've probably not done just solely focused in the electrical realm, right? They've kind of done an overarching principle set. And then so you have companies who are saying, well, we want somebody that has worked at XYZ for this period of time, that has done this skill set. And they don't get really creative in what that looks like. I think they're kind of stringent on what that looks like. And it's not necessarily the hiring manager, I would say. I would say that they have very limited talent teams internally sometimes that have checks in the boxes that they're looking for. And if they don't know how to, read that career transition or the specialty within that career, they don't know the depth of that experience, right? And then sometimes it's down to the candidate. Sometimes the candidate doesn't always put their best foot forward on those resumes, right? And saying what projects that they've worked on, and the depth of their experience. But in terms of that, even in the construction realm, I think the most sought after that we see are those travel roles that are shorted. So those are kind of difficult to fill. And so I do have some solutions for that and some answers. And when I was speaking on this, I kind of gave a simple answer, right? It's all about the culture of your company and how you treat that candidate. And if you really make them feel a valued member of the team, and then we start talking about the retainment of candidates and talent, right? And so I think that's a whole nother talk that we can have, because that gets very long. But I mean, it is a very valuable component to recruitment. You can't have a good recruitment program and kind of a lazy retainment program, because then you're constantly in a cycle. And so, then you also have to be playing the long game of talent acquisition, right? You can't just solely focus on the recruitment of talent. And so talent acquisition is that long game of building qualified teams, how you keep them, and then always constantly looking for the next talent. And so there are companies who build wonderful programs to upskill, to certify, and to train that talent into the next phase of their career, and constantly keep them moving through their talent pipelines.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Adam's here. Hey,
Hello.
Adam. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
We're talking labor gaps and all sorts of fun things, which I'm sure is going to be a topic at Dice National. But before we get into that, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody and who you are, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Thanks so much, Amy. Appreciate you welcoming me on this show here. Nice to meet you both, Joshua and Roxanne. I'm Adam Knobloch. I am the global head of data centers and all things data center events at Bisnow Media. Bisnow Media is North America's and Western Europe's largest commercial real estate media company, US, UK, Canada, and Ireland. Dice National, coming up next week, is our biggest event of the Dice series, which has 20 events in it. We brought together about 7,000 attendees last year in bite-sized chunks. This year, quite a bit more. And in terms of that event, it is the biggest one in droves. It'll be a 3-day event this year. It's the biggest event at Bisnow overall in the entire company too. And we just passed our 1,000 attendee mark. We are at 1,010 attendees confirmed with 1 week to go. Wow. And as this industry loves to register very late, I assume we're probably going to have an extra 100 or 200 people register in the next week. So it's going to talk about a ton of things. We do have a workforce development panel focusing on workforce, human versus AI. How is the workforce and labor gap going to be augmented by AI? I truly believe that it'll be supported by AI, not jobs necessarily just going away, but transforming to new jobs, becoming more efficient with the use of AI and other next-gen tech. And also workforce development, a very important topic and near and dear to my heart. It will be likely incorporated into almost every operations and construction development kind of conversation that we have, all 3 days. So the event, 3 days, breakfast, lunch, cocktail party every day, ending on day 3 with a casino night cocktail party, which will be DJ'd by our very own Buddy Reiser, executive director over at Loudoun County, the man, the legend. He was also DC 101's a very notable radio station in the Mid-Atlantic. He was a DJ over there for, I think, 13 years, and then transitioned over to the data center space or economic development. So very excited. This is the biggest event of my career. Very, very excited here.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, congrats. I know it takes a lot of work pulling off events. Trust me, I know.
Absolutely. And Amy, we're psyched to have you on hand here. I believe on day 2, our opening keynote panel, talking about AI and the growth of the ecosystem and how GPU demand will be able to keep up with the industry. It's bonkers. The money in this industry is insane. Yes. The technologies in this industry is insane. Everything's insane. It's going crazy.
It is. It is. I mean, what a fun time to be in the data center industry.
Yeah.
We are the golden child, the shiny object and the golden child at the moment. Like you just revel in it for a while because we don't know how long it'll last. But something else will come up. But yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I remember a time, 5-8 years ago when data centers weren't even accepted by normal investors because it didn't check their boxes of, is this asset safe? Well, right. I mean, now $500 million investments is not even that big of a number anymore. It's wild.
It is crazy town. Very, very cool. So on the marketing side, Josh, is there let's keep it on the labor train a little bit. So what is that like? Like, normally you get in the data center industry, you don't know how to market. It's a different ball of wax, right? You're not just, you can't take a commercial leasing agent and turn them into a data center leasing or marketer, right? So there's a little bit of work there.
That's actually a really interesting question. We see a lot of people in sales and marketing roles that when there's a little bit of a blip in their company and their division and their location, that they're actually in many cases looking for another opportunity. So I think one of the many areas, one of the many gaps that internal HR and even data center recruiters can look at is how to repurpose sales professionals and marketing professionals into adjacent roles that are client facing at other parts of their own company or their own industry. There's a lot of people that a typical thing that might happen, a co-location operator merges and they had 8 people on the marketing team combined, and now they feel they can do it with 3 or 4. Or a company has a low margin product line that they decide is now going to be sold self-service. So what was before a low margin inside sales operation, they don't need that inside sales operation anymore. Or they decide that the company's going to do a lot more field marketing. So now all of a sudden a job that was 10% travel is now 30% travel or 50% travel. So yeah, there's a lot of people that leave either digital infrastructure and go into SaaS or telecommunications, or if they're in something co-location wise, sometimes they're going into a part of real estate that has nothing to do with industrial. They're going to like residential real estate. So in the same way that customer marketing a lot of times is looking for opportunities of how to sell more to existing customers, I think there's a lot of use cases for looking at the skill sets that people have that have been in these roles, that have deep resumes, 5, 10 plus years in this industry, that could be repurposed into project managers, estimators, a whole host of roles where their soft skills and deep industry knowledge and connections would be super helpful. I also think a lot of the data center related recruiters are going through a period of transformation as well. I see increasingly a lot of data center recruiters starting up their own podcasts, putting a lot more effort into building their professional brand. My hot take on that is 5 years out from now, I think most data center recruiters will have to do that, have a real strong interest in their professional brand with things like content and thought leadership and podcasting. We've considered for a long time recruiting to be part of the outsourced sales and marketing sector in the data center industry. If you think about, like, you have the operators like the co-location and hyperscale and edge companies, you have the couple dozen kinds of technology companies, of which NVIDIA for sure would be in that place. You have facilities related companies where like Eaton and Vertiv and Schneider play really well, a dozen or so different kinds of facilities related companies. We have construction and real estate and investment, where we're very well represented with the kind of areas that you work in, Amy. And then there's outsourced sales and marketing. So we put them in this, we place recruitment in the same general area as like sales agencies, marketing, PR agencies, events and media companies, because a lot of what recruiters are doing is marketing and selling these opportunities. They're building a pipeline for hiring managers, and second, they're building a pipeline for candidates. And a lot of the skills that recruiters have with building able to build, if you think about how you'd organize a typical pipeline, I actually just spoke to a data center recruiter specializing in construction in the UK and throughout Europe yesterday. And we were talking exactly about this, how the same way you might organize your CRM to have 2 or 3 different kinds of pipelines, it's very conceivable that you'd have a pipeline for hiring managers and you'd have a different pipeline for talent. And it's a matter of having both of those pretty healthy all the time, so you have the opportunity to bring those kinds of things together. But there's a lot of interesting dynamics. I think also for internal HR departments, a lot of the skill sets that marketers and field marketers have in particular are something for sure that internal HR could benefit from many times. Being able to real active social media, employee advocacy, great online events, great offline events. A lot of times marketing is seen as a support function for sales. And when that happens, it's very rare that they'll have much resources available to equip HR to be competitive for a journey increasingly where so many people do so much research on their own before they get to a conversation. In a lot of cases, the content and the events are standing in for that.
Very cool. So when we look at the industry as a whole, obviously it's not going to look like itself probably in a year, right? It's going to change. Obviously, we have all these AI changes that are happening to the industry. Besides labor and the changes in the needs on the labor side, where else do y'all see the biggest needs from a, I'm assuming, I mean, I have this conversation with people almost every week, and they're talking about we have to retrain, we have to retool, we have to redesign certain things. I mean, what else are y'all saying? Oh, and my buddy's here. Hold on. Hey, Sean. How are you?
Oh, data center peep. Sorry, I'm late.
That's all right. We still like you. Before we answer that question, introduce yourself, sir.
I am Sean Farney coming at you live from the wilds of Wisconsin. I work for JLL. I help align with what's going on in the industry with what my clients need to find dirt and power and do ops and manage projects and all that cool
Fun
stuff that we do. Hello,
Yeah.
friends and colleagues.
Oh.
Thanks for being here. All right. So we were talking about labor shortages and all kind of addressing all of that. And then we were kind of pivoting to what's AI's impact on, besides labor and the ability we're going to have to, possibly maybe look for, are we going to look for different people? Is AI going to drive a different skill set? Are we going to need a different skill set or no?
More. We just need more.
You just need more.
And being able to use AI tools.
Yeah, that's true.
How can the use of AI enhance everything that we're doing to make it more efficient? Mostly repetitive tasks. It's going to shift that. I do have to jump for a meeting. I'm so sorry, but I do want to give a shameless plug here. Also, in terms of workforce development, Nomad Futurist Foundation, which I'm an ambassador of as well, an organization that has a platform now live that offers modules and training where the youth of the world can actually learn about data centers. That's one of the biggest things. These kids need to understand and even know what this industry is. How are we going to get people into it if they've already gone to high school, college, and decided what they wanted to do? Go work at TikTok, go work at Instagram or whatever. So yeah, there just need to be a lot more platforms like that, and recruiters, folks who are tapped in, who know where people can fill gaps, and then the trades. What I've heard from a lot of clients here across the board, construction, engineering companies, data center operators, hyperscale, they're down to train people who are ambitious that don't even know what a data center is. They don't need to know the whole industry. That can be taught, but getting people excited about it, that's the challenge here. So I guess I'll leave with that. And all the stuff will be talked about at the event next week.
Hey, Adam, who were some of the companies that contributed that training to Nomad?
Well, I think that you were on the Nomad Futurist podcast with your son as well, which I have seen. Everyone should check it out.
JLL was proud to contribute all 87 of its internal data center training courses to the Nomad platform for free use.
Which is insanely valuable. One of the biggest things, not just having money donated to the foundation to keep it running and be able to power the stuff in the platform itself. People's brains, this mind share is one of the most important things.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the percentage, but a tsunami of labor and brain power is leaving the industry because most of these people have been in the industry for more than 25 years. I've only been in the industry for about 15. So I'm still at the beginning of the career, hopefully. But with that, when these people leave, we need their mind share to be in the industry to retrain the folks that are coming up, and then obviously new stuff too.
Just hook them up to an AI machine, download all the information, and then there you go. We got to hook it up to your brain, Sean.
Yeah, seriously. All you need is Sean's brain. He's been around. I've been inviting Sean to speak at events for over a decade across.
Yeah.
Sorry to age you. I just aged myself too.
That's okay. Melissa just texted hi, by the way. I'm sorry, that was.
Thank you so much. Hi, Melissa. How's it going? Shout out to you as well. You're my favorite. I do got to jump. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate you. I hope all of you will be able to make it to next week's event. It's gonna be great.
Be there, be square.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks. All right. So as AI changes the world and the data, so besides obviously the labor and understanding being And obviously we have the densities, and we talked about the restructuring. How are you going to take, Sean, how are you going to take a little 5 megawatt data center and make it useful now? Like, can you?
Well,
Tiny, you know?
that's the perfect size. In fact, NVIDIA just redefined the AI data center of the future as a 5 megawatt pod in the new architecture. This was announced at Data Center World. Because I can spend 30 million on Supermicro gear to build a 1 megawatt data center, and that's just server, network, and storage. Not even really storage. So, the data center is shrinking because it's gotten so much more expensive because GPUs are spendy. So to try to do 100 megawatts of purely GPU, there's a pretty small subset of folks that can afford that. Some of the hypers will continue to do this or the cloud service providers for their AI LM offerings. But in the future, when you need a little less horsepower, you can, to align with the NVIDIA new superpowered architecture, this 5 megawatt data center, you just buy, that's, Jesus, like 40 cabinets. So everything has changed, and this was pretty groundbreaking stuff. So, rising tides is still lifting all ships. We will continue to build in bigger and bigger formats, but there's now a place specific to inferencing for the smaller data center, whether that's repurposing the corporate enterprise's stranded power that has been growing over the years with cloud first programs, or plopping a modular solution in a mall parking lot, or the shell of a piece of commercial real estate, or even retail. So NVIDIA defining this new architecture and shrinking the data center to 5 megawatts for deployment unit could have a pretty significant impact on basis of design.
For sure. Did they just announce that? No. Was it a GTC? I can't remember.
It came out of, and then yes, and then when Wade did the keynote at Data Center World, he kind of made that a centerpiece of the talk. We're shrinking the data center, and he specifically mentioned adaptive reuse, which is using assets, doing one thing for data center use, doing another thing, which was great because then my panel followed, and it was all about adaptive reuse.
Of course it was. They were teeing it up for you, Sean. They were your intro. They were your intro.
Yeah, I'll take it.
For sure. We got a question from people who are watching, and they would like to know, what are some of the biggest gaps you still see in the labor force in data centers, even with AI and robotics coming in? I think I'm going to punt that to Roxanne. What do you think, Roxanne?
Yeah, so some of the biggest gaps I see is in skill sets, really. We have a very experienced portion of data center, and then we have some non-experienced, and then just how the companies are filling in that gap. And I'm going to put a big question mark there because I think it's company dependent, size of the company dependent, and what type of data centers they're typically serving. So there's lots of questions there that would take us a while to answer, but yeah, I think that's the overall general answer. But I also want to piggyback real quick on what Josh was saying about marketing and branding. And I think to kind of attract this gap in talent, right, I think it's very important that we market in that way that gets young talent to want to be with us in those sectors. And because we all have our phones and we all have these things, and that's where kids want to go. And I very much apologize, everybody, but I kind of consider you a kid if you're under 30. So, I'm definitely not under 30. And so, I think that we are just hardwired that way, right? Is to just be like, we go to where the interwebs tell us to go through marketing. And at Data Center World, I spoke heavily on this. If company Y down the road has a better marketing program than you do, that's where the talent is going to be going, because that's what's popping up through other factors like SEO and things like that. So you definitely have to be on top of it. So yeah, my answer is a skill set gap for sure.
Okay, very cool. Let's talk about global expansion. I love this story because not because it's globally expanding, like duh. We're going to need data centers everywhere, but it's the amount of money that they're willing to spend to get into the data centers. That was like my biggest takeaway. But Saudi Arabia apparently wants 500 megawatts of a data center, right? And they're spending $5 billion. They're like throwing so much money at it. And I was just like, wow. I mean, I don't know. Have you heard any of this story, Sean? Have you heard anything about what's happening over in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, it's a great story. In fact, we're redeploying a team. JLL is deploying a team to the Middle East to handle this. I think it's part of the new industrial policy, right? We're pushing AI development as a strategic item and partnering to do it. So this could result in a bunch of business for U.S. companies. But the whole Arabian Peninsula for years has been searching for the next thing to invest in because they know the oil's running out, right? That's why they subsidize the flights there, so you can get there and do business. That's been going on for a long time. And I think maybe now they've bitten down on digital, which would be fantastic because it's a completely underdeveloped part of the world. This will spur on submarine cable builds, jobs. It's a great thing, and with that much money, they can certainly do it. And it'd be kind of nice to have another data center region of the world, and one that's growing very, very fast.
Does it help that it's next to the Suez Canal? Does that help at all, you think, for logistics, world, shipping and supply chain and anything? I mean, I don't know if the data centers will, but I mean, there might be a linkage there, there might not, or I may be totally off my rocker, but I would think it does.
At that scale, every single, so, after the announcement, the next 6 months is going to be the Schneider Inverters of the world, trying to get a piece of that, right? And every single one of them, whether it's providers of concrete or structural steel, will be building plants on site in mass. So there will be a all kinds of material moving there and business generated, and these will be my new acronym of the week is Massive Digital Industrial Park. You heard it here, maybe first. I don't know.
MADIP.
Yeah, it's a good one. Rolls right off the tongue.
It does.
This is the thinking big about not only deploying more data centers, but deploying these industrial parks, which include data centers, but also include the manufacturing of the materials and the supplies, because these data center campuses are just getting ridiculously large. A lot of countries around the world are starting to reshore. For a bunch of different reasons. And the general digitization that we're all seeing as part of our cultural digital transformation, not only is requiring more data centers, but just requiring more pieces and parts along the entire supply chain. So there's this huge growth in this massive digital infrastructure park idea. Builds to that, focusing on power as the backbone, self-generation, be all kinds of different fuels, and then hosting things like data centers, chip fab plants, manufacturing facilities, and this creates all kinds of jobs and revenues and potential good things for communities. So it solves the NIMBY and the community relations aspect as well. So I think this is it's a master development concept that real estate people are not unfamiliar with. I think we may start to see this injected into the data center world going forward.
Yeah, so at the scale that they're doing this, it requires, obviously, I mean, I was a developer, so it's a lot of moving parts, but it's also in the Middle East. So, you have, it's freaking hot, and, are they going to change the design? You can't take, I mean, I guess Phoenix is kind of close to, maybe not. It gets a lot hotter there. Like, how are they going to cool these suckers? And then not only that, it's, I'm sure it's all engineering, but, from that region, do they have the folks available to work in those centers? I mean, is it a region that's developing from a technology skills gap? Because we've been talking about labor. Do you know?
I'll answer to the climate. Low humidity is easy.
Okay.
A lot of the energy that's consumed or needed for air cooling, at least, is revolves a lot around the moisture in the air. It's more of a technical discussion. So if this is air cooled, and Phoenix is a great example, Utah is another one. Not at the heat is not the issue, rather the humidity.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a deep dive in mechanical. So I don't think that's a daunting challenge. If these are liquid cooled, and that's new stuff. But again, I don't think that the climate is too much of an influence there. There's a water issue at scale. Again, if you're using air, you need some water. So that one, we could spend a whole podcast just on that.
For sure. I bet. We really wanted to get into condensate. It'd be awesome. We could do that. Yeah.
Condensate, such a good word.
So that's a great word. So let's talk through. But there's a lot of these day SIPs. Is that what we call them? No, wait. Day MIPS.
Massive digital.
MADIPs. Okay, they're MADIPs. Okay, these MADIPs. But this is not they're developing them in Saudi Arabia. There's one in Texas, or a couple in Texas, and somewhere over, there's like this thing where they're hundreds of 1,500 acres in Texas or something, and they're turning it into a big data center industrial park. Something like that. Do we have the people to do that? Do we have the ability to do this? And, Roxanne says we do, except for electricians. So, but if all these things came online, because everything I'm seeing in the world in development, everything's going to come online in 2028. Is anybody watching those, by the way? Is anyone keeping track of, like, this data center says it's going to start online in 2028 to figure out, okay, what's our construction need going to be? Is anyone doing that? That would be a good idea. For 2029?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do believe that we have the talent to support that. I am going to go back to my original statement of it's up to the companies whether they want to have wiggle room on what that skill set looks like and what they can develop.
But aren't we just going to, at some point, we're going to need bodies? Because I'm trying to think on forecasting of labor needs, right? Or labor demand. Is anybody taking a look at, like, maybe by job, like what the demand forecast is going to be? Has anyone seen any of that? Because there's announcements all the time. Oh yeah, we're going to build this and it's going to be in 2028. I see that routinely. I'm just thinking 2028 is going to be a really damn busy year.
I think on the soft skills, I don't think there's going to be any issues. We already have huge pockets of interest in Saudi Arabia and Emirates and a handful of other countries in that space, and they largely focus on the same kind of issues that go-to-market folks work on globally. Historically, Emirates has done really good with encouraging immigration from places like India. So there's a lot of talent pool that they can pull in. I don't know that that's really the bottleneck. Energy, in theory, shouldn't be the bottleneck either. Oil converts may not be the best preferred way to power all the facilities, but that shouldn't be an issue. In terms of labor, a lot of the big training companies already have programs in place there. A lot of big media and events companies already running programs in many of those regions of the world. In terms of, the construction and the capital and the real estate all has to proceed by a period of 2 to 3 years. And it seems like from this news that we saw coming out this week that everything seems to be actually more aligned there than Stargate.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
In terms of bodies, Amy, just on more of a global perspective, 8.7% of construction talent comes from those with data center experience. So I think we have room that we could grow. I don't think we would run out of bodies. I think our real problem is the cost of the labor. And that has risen 73%, maybe 74% now since 2021. And
Wow.
that's a lot.
Mm.
If we're talking about other verticals, let's just throw out the generalized senior project manager is making double in the data center space what they are in other verticals within construction. And so it's definitely more attractive. And so you'll start seeing, people wanting to make the hop, skip, and jump however they can. So
Oh, well, I mean, money solves a lot of problems. So just throw more money at
it,
them.
well, I don't recommend that. I recommend what we're trying to do in the data center space is trying to stabilize that a little bit, and make that more profitable in terms, because right now labor costs are approaching 30% of your total project cost, and that's a lot. So that needs to stabilize somehow. But I am not the finance person. I will find you a finance person, but I don't have me crunching all the numbers for you. That would not be good. But yeah, we definitely need to do something. But maybe Sean can speak a little bit more on that, and you, Amy, about the cost of those projects and where they live. But yeah, 30% seems to be a large number for labor costs. So
Yeah. Do we have enough bodies, Sean, to do all these 2028 developments?
No, we never had enough bodies. So we employ, just say, more than 5,000 data center techs to support our FM business with some pretty big companies around the world. And there's been a lot of just stealing bodies from competitors as well as clients, then absorbing some of our folks. So there's been a lot of labor trading over the years. JLL has been really good from a talent acquisition perspective in forecasting upcoming business and staffing against it. So knowing we're signing a new client in EMEA and we need 100 techs, we'll start working right away to find those folks. I think, though, the problem is the front of the funnel. I think we're kind of addressing the middle and top of the funnel right now, meaning, and Roxanne kind of alluded to this earlier, we need to programmatically attach ourselves as an industry to tech schools, vocational schools, community colleges, and even work programs in high schools to make to do good marketing around how sexy data center careers are and how much money you can make. Similarly, and this is it's tough. You never want to fight with the unions for folks, and because the industry has a great relationship with good union workers, but the journeyman electricians and mechanical folks who make up the backbone of a lot of the Midwest data center crews, there's also an opportunity there, I think, for conversion, because those folks are so good at what they do, and there's already an established training program to create those folks. And they kind of wind up in the data center business by taking an end around. So there could be some, the data center industry could be a new vertical, so to speak, or channel for union labor. But I certainly think attaching to vocational trade schools and associate degree programs is what we should be doing. Microsoft is doing some of this in the Phoenix area with great success. If we were to standardize on this nationally, I think we would have this early funnel pipeline, which we could then blow up with some success, and then kind of even out where we're getting this labor. As Adam mentioned, some of us are aging out, and that next 10 years, a lot of that experience is going to fall off, and you need mentors and coaches to get this generation up and going. So that's a huge opportunity, and we're doing some creative things along those lines.
yeah, Sean, I'm glad you mentioned the mentorship opportunities. I have a fun fact for you that companies who offer mentorship programs retain their talent by 34%. And that's a pretty large number in retainment, just by teaching, helping someone else grow within their skill sets. So just food for thought as we go. You might want to offer that as a company. Not you, Sean, I know y'all do, but others that are listening.
For sure.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of moving parts. There's still only, if you look at the thousands of higher education institutions in the US, there's only like less than a handful where you can actually go and legitimately major in data centers. It's crazy. It's not even covering all of the major and secondary markets. So there's an enormous opportunity there. Of the people that I speak with on a regular basis, about a quarter are living in a country where they weren't born in. There's an enormous amount of immigration and expats that are helping to fuel the growth in the data center industry. I just spoke with someone a week or two ago in Singapore that's moving to Dubai in a couple of weeks to support growth. So there's just so much of this that goes on. And I think higher ed is a great opportunity. High school is a great opportunity, but in the many parts of the US, maybe this way in some other parts of the world as well, I think actually high school may be a little too late. It's a long game, but like in the area of South Florida where I live in, about an hour north of Miami, it's a huge school district. Kids start thinking about careers around 6th grade. When they move from elementary to middle school, there's like an IT academy, there's a culinary academy, there's an engineering academy. They're literally thinking of careers at like 10 or 11 years old as they're moving from elementary to middle school. So like when I grew up, there was a concept of a career day. And I guess it's been kind of replaced by take your kids to work day. But yeah, but that's not going to solve the problems 2, 3, 4 years. What's going to solve the problems in the next couple of years is getting more college professors and getting more high school teachers bought into this. Like you mentioned, Microsoft, Google, Apple, they've historically had really good success. CompTIA, or whatever that its current name is, it went through a rebranding last year. They've done really well at getting colleges and high schools to adopt curricula. What's missing is no one's done a fantastic job on a national level of getting hundreds or thousands of high schools to train the trainers, basically to train the IT teachers in high school or even a middle school to start influencing teens long before the family takes on whatever debt they're going to have for higher education, and kind of like, okay, we already invested in this. Now you got to go make this career work. Not to mention all the careers, all the knowledge worker careers that are being upended by AI.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked with a couple different people, and I'll get down this rabbit hole, and then we'll talk about some other stuff. But I think that, and I could be wrong, maybe the data center industry has a PR problem. Who's the voice of the data center industry? Is there one voice? Is there a group that supports the industry as a whole and does advocacy, or is there not? I don't know. I'm a newbie.
It's very fragmented, but lots of parts of the technology industry historically have been very fragmented.
Mm-hmm. I think I would agree. I think it's fragmented, but I think it's starting to align. I think we have our groups like AFCOM and the like that are starting to align with other groups like iMason and the Nomad Futurist. Of course, they're aligning, trying to bring up their nonprofit, of course. But I think the message is getting out. I think we just need to be doing better having the same message. But I think having big names like JLL doing their market research and things like that and producing educational information and then giving so freely helps align the message. So I think it's getting there.
Interesting.
Challenge too is like the hyperscalers. Google has made huge investments the last couple of years with its career certificate. But Google doesn't really want to see a thriving co-location industry, right? They want to see everyone put their resources in GCP. Amazon, same thing. Amazon has great training curricula, but they're not about teaching you to run a better co-location business, right? So there's a lot of interesting dynamics, and you're right. You do need a big concerted effort to really start to move the needle on this at a national level. So this becomes a lot more widely available than the training options that exist today.
For sure. I mean, one of the other articles we were talking about was the DOE is coming out with, they announced 16 sites that they wanted to do, I guess, small modular nuclear at for the data center industry. That was one of the articles. So I guess one of the skills we're going to need is like, we need people who understand nuclear technology. I mean, I don't know how many of those we have, but it might become more prevalent, right? Is we're going to need some more nukes coming out of the Navy, Sean. We need more nuke text out of the Navy.
Always, they're highly employable. Yeah, the DOE RFI was interesting. It morphed, and the last administration was tied specifically to geothermal as a fuel source, which kind of tanked it in the beginning because no one does that at scale. In its most recent version, it just laid out a number of labs and said, hey, anyone who would like to help develop them, perhaps a JLL or others, put together a response to this, how you would develop these this long list of sites that has a bunch of excess land and pretty good power and really, really, really good fiber connectivity, because most of these sites are connected together for academic networks and other research purposes. So that was an interesting one, but it did have what the new AI and cryptos are. David Sachs injected into it was a very strong AI flair. How can we, again, pursuant to industrial policy and maintaining our role as the leader in the AI space, how can we use this power and this land and this fiber to enhance our AI deployments? So it's very aspirational. It's really up here, and we got a little creative with it. But it's a good, okay, good job, government. You're at least thinking directionally in the right way.
Right.
In the real estate space, we all get, 5 calls a day from Joe Bob, your uncle's buddy's neighbor, who has 100 acres and thinks has a lot of power and wants to sell this piece of land for, $200 billion, is going to retire tomorrow and get rich. So everyone thinks they can do it.
Yes.
If they have some of these particular elements, it's obviously a lot harder than that. But this is a good thing that we're thinking in this direction and injecting this AI context into everything and questioning how we can, no data centers are, data centers being cool. That's so January now with Stargate and the DOE RFI. Okay, we're gonna up the game. Like, what do you mean LLMs? LLMs, that was Mark. We're talking inferencing now. So
Yes, I know.
It's an interesting time, but everyone is swinging over to jump into the data center pool. That's for sure.
I was one of those people too. I jumped in. So how do we win the AI race? Is it we just have to have a data center in every corner, like a 7-Eleven? Or what is it that's gonna, it's not so much, obviously the data centers are going to be the backbone of it. But are we going to win the AI race because we have the most AI startups? Or are we going to have to win the AI race because we have, what is it? What's the race? What are we running? What's the criteria? I don't even know. Does anybody know? I don't know.
Looks like Saudi Arabia is looking to have a strong second, maybe strong first. The investments this week.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's the mania around investing in anything and everything related to AI. I said this before, probably a week doesn't go by now that someone doesn't reach out to me and says, there's a piece of land next to where we are. Could we develop a data center? You need to talk to a data center real estate person. Why are you reaching out to someone that specializes in sales enablement and channel partnerships and things like that? I literally, like an hour before we hopped on this, someone from a investment firm reached out to me. Do you have any clients that are doing work in data center power development? Yeah, they are. But okay, so everyone wants in, and I guess a lot of this is, if we think about 5, 6, 7 years ago, the only way the general public outside of IT and infrastructure and industrial real estate knew about the data center industry was when Equinix or QTS or someone did their quarterly earnings. Now it's every single day for the last 2, 3, 4 years, it's on mainstream financial news and business news. And it's an opportunity, but how to capitalize on this is multi-layer, and definitely some of it starts with talent. I think some of it also, there's a lot of debates at the generational level as to how much automation and AI is being used within these job roles. I spoke to someone 2-3 weeks ago who was at Cisco for 12 or 15 years. He runs a startup now that does digital twin simulations for computer networking. I've talked to a bunch of people on the podcast who do simulations on the engineering side, on the cooling and power side. And there's for sure a gap between people that are in the later stages of their career and earlier stages in their career on who's more excited about automation and AI and who's more resistant to it.
Are you saying old dogs can't learn new tricks? Is that what you just said?
The irony is in the space that I operate in, we've hit the tipping point where I really don't know any baby boomers that still work in the space that aren't on LinkedIn all day long. Not only are they on LinkedIn all day long, they're on podcasts, they're on webinars, they totally get all of this. So yeah, the tipping points have happened in that part of digital adoption. I think in the tools that are unique to individual jobs, I think there's still some generational resistance, but it's getting solved relatively quickly as the norms and the productivity tools change.
Interesting. So I mean, we're running a race, we're running the AI race, but I guess because we have the most startups, or we have the most cool PR, or we have the most, I don't know, or we adopt it faster, I guess. I don't know. I mean, the HR people need to adopt some AI, Roxanne, so they can hire their candidates faster.
I think so. I believe it was JLL who actually put a statistic to this that in HR, if you aren't already using AI, you're 3 years behind. So I'm pretty sure it was your global head of HR that said that. So she's doing good work. And so they're using it. So how
do you think I got my master's degree? I ChatGPT all the way, baby. I got through master.
It's changing education. There was a video going around YouTube yesterday from Mainstream. I think it was a Fox affiliate or something like that. It was a teacher that had been a digital marketer for 3 or 4 years. She was like in her late 20s. Then she taught for 3 years. I think it was high school English. And she was walking away from teaching because she can't figure out a way, and her district can't figure out a way to reinvent the standards that students and teachers operate on to take this into account, and feels like they're not making an impact anymore with. So I think there's a lot of school districts at all different levels that need to figure out what all of this means.
Yeah.
I've got a digital,
you got what?
I've got a digital twin. I've got Sean GPT.
You do? Yeah, Sean GPT. That's awesome.
Of course I do. I have, as part of my role, I respond to all the JLL PR requests. So I just take everything I say or do on the topic and have my own private GPT, so I can ask myself what I think about things, which is sometimes interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I know, for sure. So what does your self tell you? What does your AI tell you?
We are winning the AI race undoubtedly because of our startup culture, which is a product of our, I mean, you could trace that back to kind of our political governance and its respective individual thought and liberty. That's a whole different rat hole we certainly won't go down, but we're winning this race. I think we attack this on the supply side, meaning we reshore and we build, whether it's rare earth or manufacturing or chips, and we're doing all of this right now. If we capture the supply side of this business and don't limit our, we therefore won't limit our demand. And given our advantages in natural resources, we should, and this entrepreneurial culture should be a slam dunk. But that's certainly not easy.
All right, last topic, tariffs. Is a 15% tariff going to slow down data center construction? Yes or no? Everybody go around the room. No, 15% slow down, Sean?
Consultant answer. It depends.
Wow, that's like so awful. Don't do that. Joshua, does it 15% tariff slow down data center construction?
I think there's pockets of it that it's going to impact more than others. Figuring out the whole supply chain is above my pay grade.
Yeah.
Let the supply chain and logistics folks have a better stab at that.
So the SoftBank pause on OpenAI, Stargate stuff, was that just them flexing their muscle? Because they're like, well, you're doing tariffs on us. Why the hell would we fund your whatever? What do you think?
What I got from that pause is it sounds a lot like the last 3 or 4 pauses in the NASDAQ and the S&P. as
Yeah.
people were super nervous about uncertainty last
Yes.
7 days, there's been a global tour of creating certainty. So
Yeah.
roller coaster.
Yeah, no one likes roller coasters, not for sure, not in the markets. Well, look at that, y'all. There's our hour. You did it. Roxanne survived. She's the newbie. She survived. She made it through the whole hour in the show.
Did.
Roxanne.
Did. I still have to tell Sean that I'm waiting for that iPad that he said he was handing out at Data Center World, since our times were at the same time when we were
You
speaking.
didn't, hey, but you had to be present. Sorry, Roxanne. Like, shameless. I'm shameless in trying to get people to listen to
Next time.
Yes,
time.
next time. Indeed.
Exactly. Very cool. All right, y'all. Well, this has been super fun. Thanks for coming on the show. Next week.
Thanks, Amy.
Woo!
Thank you.
Bye.
Guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.